Again, hello everybody, and I've got another fantastic guest for my powerful women. And this powerful woman is Jules Chabeaux, and she's, as it says on the bottom of her screen, a wildlife artist. Now, I've seen her stuff, and I think it's gorgeous. And if you want to see it, she's mostly puts it on Instagram. Am I right, Jules? Yeah.
Yes, I use Instagram as my main social media, and of course I've got my website as well, so you can see it on there too.
And you'll have all those links in the show notes. But I was there going, well, I've got her bio and all this kind of thing. And that's what I want to say when I'm introducing her. And so I'm going to try and do something I haven't done before because I want to share screen with you all as well as us. And let's see if this actually shows you a little bit of who she is. I mean, I was first presented, I get on a website and I'm presented with this amazing face. And that to me, I mean, I'm not saying Jules is a hair, although you want to be, but it's just like somebody who has seen a hair, who is actually seeing you. And this is what really does it for me. It's those eyes. And hair is actually seeing you. And I feel that. Is that how it is for you when you're painting, Jules?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's lovely to hear you say that, Ellen, because that's exactly how I work as an artist, and I'm relatively new as a wildlife artist. It's only been sort of the last 4 years that I've been doing it professionally.
Mm.
I've always drawn and painted, but and it's always been wildlife. Um, but my passion and my I guess I don't know how you describe it. Just my connection with animals has always been sort of a central part of me. And so when I see an animal, I was saying this morning on my Instagram, and no matter what's happening, everything else disappears, and I am totally absorbed and in awe of this beautiful being, and wanting to, send them love and connect with them, and feel into who they are and honor them, and that's exactly what I'm fortunate enough to be able to do when I'm painting and drawing, is to hold that connection, even though they're not physically there with me at the time.
Yeah.
And then I hope, and I do get a lot of people saying they can feel similar to yourself, that they can feel that connection that's being emitted from the being in the painting, coming through, which is wonderful, because that's, I guess, what my heart's trying to do, is share that with as many other people as possible, and help them remember that animals, and all sentient beings have got so much to share with us, and so much to offer and help us with.
Yeah. That is totally where my heart is too. I mean, I'm totally fixated and obsessed and whatever other sort of syndrome you think I might have. Wildlife is my life. And like you, I've always been that connected with them. And I feel that connection too. But I'm just sort of getting this. I'm going to turn this off in a minute because I'm going to get mesmerized by hair in a minute. But I'm really feeling I'm being looked at by this hair who are you? What are you?
Yeah.
Who are you? What are you talking about? What do you want to ask me? What do you want to tell me? What do I want to tell you? And I'm getting all of that stuff from hair. And I think it's something that is so either hidden, if we've got it, we hide it under a flower pot somewhere, or else we don't realize that we can because people laugh at us. I'm going to stop the share for a minute because I'm sure everybody else is getting mesmerized too.
Well, I can't think of a much better way of being mesmerized than a beautiful big hair.
No, exactly. But I do feel that it's something that's missing in our lives. We sometimes connect with other people, but we're not awfully good at that half the time. But we don't connect. You don't feel that, a tree is part of your family, or this rose bush in your garden is part of your family, or a fox trotting across the field is, or anything like that, or the birds who come to your table. And it's so missing for me. Do you feel the same thing?
Yeah, I think I'm sure I'd love to be able to magically know how many of us are out there in the world, us human folk, that are still or have reconnected to the magnificence of nature in every shape and form, and vibration and energy. I'm sure there's probably more than we think. I hope there is anyway, and I think it is growing,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people are finding there's like an emptiness of spirit, and they're feeling it more.
Mm.
And so for me, I just hope that that number, I'm pretty sure, I've always been very intuitive, and I feel like more and more people are reconnecting, or they've been, from a young child, been very connected, like you've said, and I have been, and they've maybe lost the path a bit, but now they're coming back again and really remembering, just how incredibly diverse and magnificent all life on Mother Earth is, and then feeling the joy of that and the reconnection in themselves, which is, I think, ultimately what most people are searching for, isn't it? It's that sense of
Oh, I agree.
real connection.
Yeah, I do agree. And um well, I'm a Leo, so I'm an optimist. I want to think this is happening. So I have to take a
Yeah.
slight rein on myself to say, no, whoa, let's do a quick reality check before we go any further. But like you,
Yeah.
I feel more and more people want this. And
Yes.
I'm getting contacted on social media by people who are just tentatively like, you know, almost it's like, are you safe to talk to about this?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. And I think there are levels of sort of um human conditioning. But what I notice is when I talk to people that come and see my art, they'll often, like you say, they're a bit tentative, and then I'll share a bit more and say where I'm coming from, and then they share a bit more, and
Yeah.
then it opens up, and that's wonderful. But also I love it when children come and
Oh,
see
yes.
my art, and they come in and and they're just connected instantly. You can see this and feel this huge connection, and look at the rabbit, or and their parents. Then I think it encourages their parents to come into that world, because I think a lot of people have been taught that it's okay to love animals when you're a small child,
Yes.
but then you get to a
Now you've got
certain
to
age
grow
and
up.
you have to disconnect from that, and be serious and
Yes.
talk about serious things that don't involve wildlife and nature, which is just so sad. And I mean, I experienced that myself,
Mm.
in my school, and my parents and my friends.
Mm.
It was almost like there was a cut off. You couldn't
Yeah.
really say when it was, but it was almost like it doesn't exist anymore. And I was heartbroken,
Mm.
because my whole heart was deeply connected. And so I sort of went into hiding when I got about 13, 14,
Mm.
and sort of hid it for many, many years. But it was always there and burning very brightly. But I didn't really feel safe to share it.
I think
Um,
that's really important too, because people don't, I think, feel it's a little bit like, after a certain age, Father Christmas doesn't exist anymore.
yes,
And
yeah.
it's the fairies don't exist anymore. And
Yes,
aren't
if
you
you've
grown
been,
up enough? You don't have that imaginary friend. And
yeah,
you don't know how to say, actually, Dad, it's not imaginary.
yes, that's it. And I think a lot of people, naturally, when you're young and you're surrounded by people telling you that that's the way it is, you go along with it, as
Yeah,
it's sort of a bit of a protection, isn't it, to
yeah,
be like them.
yeah.
And I think some people also are quite distanced anyway when they come into the world around animals and nature. Um, and I think, again, sometimes people are very much more focused on people rather than animals and nature. And I think everybody's here for a different reason, aren't
Yeah.
they? So,
Oh, absolutely.
um,
But I'd like a bit more and for me,
mm,
so yeah, people. I mean, we're thoroughly enjoying having a chat now, and other people that we both know that we talk to.
yeah,
But yeah, I like talking even just to my cat, especially to my cat.
Absolutely.
Or I
Why
get
is
bored to death here. But there's the birds outside, and you watch, and I'm sitting there having a little relax, watching the birds through the window, and it's like, oh, hey, look, there's a nuthatch. Oh, there's two nuthatches. We have got a pair. Oh, have you got a nest yet? And all this stuff is going through. And I love that connection as well as. So it isn't a sort of instead, it's an as well as.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always sort of seen the animals and nature, but centrally the animals as my family. And over the years, after I'd sort of shut that away and then gradually started to peel it back and then really peeled it back, I realized from lots and lots of different experiences I've had that they are exactly that. They are our relatives. They're non-human relatives, and I love the analogy of the quantum hologram.
Absolutely, yes. Oh, you're
yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, you're totally on my plane there.
Yeah. So this idea that if we are, and I can't prove it, I can't disprove it. If we are all part of this big holograph, then it means that there are literally just on planet Earth millions and millions and millions of different species of all sorts of life in wondrous and incredible form. And yet within each of us, there is a teeny part of all of those pieces. Yes. And so I've had lots of people over the years who say to me, why am I drawn to certain animals? Or why is it that when I see a hare in particular, I'm absolutely captivated? And sort of over the years of peeling those layers back and through various things that I've remembered and developed, it's almost like, well, it's either that's a core part of your ancestry and your background far beyond this lifetime in whichever way or form that shows up, and it can be about there's a calling within you, there's an imbalance that's saying reconnect to this part, this aspect of yourself.
Yeah.
And tune into that and remember what that is and bring that back out in yourself. And to me, that it's just magic, and I could talk about it forever, as you could tell.
We might well end up talking about that kind of thing, certainly for this podcast, but hopefully you'll come back again and we can talk again.
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
It's the magic of it, indeed. And you said, either it's, something in your past that, past ancestry connection, or it's something you need now. For me, it's always both. It's almost like great grandmother hare has come back and said, oi, wake up, Ellen, you need me now. Look at me, listen to me.
Yes, yeah, beautiful. And I know I've been lucky enough to speak with a number of different Indigenous elders over the years, and to hear them speak about their connectedness, and they talk about the ancestors being the animals are our ancestors, and the animals have been in human form before, and humans have been in animal form before, and as soon as I always get this, it's almost like hairs on the back of my neck, and this connecting with more truth. And I trust that intuitive part of myself, and I know that when I hear these things, it just feels like, yes, that's part of the puzzle, and it just it makes sense to me, and it just makes me feel so much more connected to life. And I think that I struggle. I like people, but I'm a lot less tolerant of people than I am of animals. And I think that's a part of what makes me me, and why I've been doing the things I do on the planet.
Exactly.
But I do want to connect with people that are remembering and want to remember, particularly because I just want as many people on the planet as quickly as possible to remember that we really need to protect these precious beings for all of our sakes, you know, regardless of whether or not they're passionate about wildlife or not. Without this web of life, we're all done for, aren't we? To be quite frank,
we can't live on our own, and we're just not, you know, Mother Earth, excuse me guys if you don't like the phrase, but planet Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and she, in that sense, quite Lovelockian in that way. I think she knows what she's doing. I think this is a system that is working, and she organized us all to live together. So, you know, there have been humans on planet Earth for what, about 5 million years, say, roughly, guess. How much, what percentage is 5 million of 4.5 billion?
A teeny little
so we know it all. Wow. I don't think so.
We really don't. And it's almost as if that's quite a sad part of it, because in the belief that we know it all, we pinch ourselves off from so much more. And to me, and obviously I'm very biased, but to me, the joy, the real deep joy, is the connection to wildlife, and knowing that when we align with her laws, we can bring magic into our own life and create what we want. And for me, that's, you know, it's living experience of that, and how incredibly powerful we can all be when we get out of our own ways, and we can.
That says it all. Yeah, when we get out of our own way. And I mean, some people sort of say, or they used to say when I was a bit younger, so like, get out of your head, get out of your own head, you know. And you need to, like, the whole universe does not spin around Ellen or around Jules, or any one of us. It's working its own way. And life is so much easier when you work along with it. And I found this in all sorts of ways, like, you know, my coaching business, with when I was working for the Ministry of Defense as a computer boffin, for goodness sake. It worked then.
Yeah, of course.
You connect with everything else, and you sort of understand it and feel it. And no, it's not a human, and you're not anthropomorphizing it, but it's there doing its thing. And you can't make it do something else. You can organize yourself so that you work together. But you can't force it to do something else. And people complain about the weather, for instance. And oh, you know, why can't we do something about this? And you sort of go, really? You have no idea how weather works.
Well, that's it. And you know, it's again, it's conditioning, isn't it? That I think as a nation, generally, Great Britain, United Kingdom, is obsessed with the weather. And we moan if it's hot, we moan if it's cold, we moan if it's wet, we moan if it's dry. So it's almost like that sort of conditioned, I don't know, passive aggressive sort of response, rather than saying, here is the weather, isn't it beautiful? Dress accordingly, act accordingly. I don't know who it was that said it once. They said there's no such thing as wrong weather, only wrong clothing.
I've heard it for years. I don't go out very much now because I've got too old and creaky, but I used to do loads and loads of bushcraft, you know, go out wild camping and go out with a group, and we'd sort of hike around on Dartmoor or Scotland or somewhere, and, you know, camping overnight and all this sort of thing. And as long as you were dressed, and as long as, you know, if the wind was coming along doing horizontal sleet at you, you found somewhere to hide and waited it out.
Exactly, just like the animals do.
Exactly. And, you know, then it stops and all the birds come out, and you see this deer coming out from you know, under some trees and all that kind of thing. Oh, that's okay. And that again is like going along with it. It needs to sleet and hail at the moment. Okay, that's cold and frightening and horrible. Let's hide. let's
Yeah.
find a nice rock or a cave or a tree or a bush or something and pull the
Exactly.
tarp over us and have a
Yeah.
doze for however long.
That's it. Yeah, and also I think with animals and all of nature, there is a presence in the moment and an acceptance of the moment as it is, whereas us beautiful souls in funny human bodies, we get wrapped up in all of this past stuff and future stuff and get a knickers in a real old twist, don't we, about projecting what we think's going to happen, tomorrow or a week or a year or 10 years away, and then we sort of project into that our fears and our worries and get sort of all upset about it. So when it's raining, we sort of project into, oh, it's going to be bad, and oh, I'm going to get wet, and I'm going to be cold, and it hasn't even happened because we haven't even stepped out into it yet.
And we also get very inflexible with it too, because I mean, at the moment it is wet and raining. Yesterday evening it was lovely and sunny. It'd been raining during the day, and I was able to go out in the garden and start doing a few things, which actually I have had to wait because the weather was just too wet to do.
Yeah.
Today it's wet again.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm doing something else.
Exactly.
I'm not
I choose.
totally fraught because I can't do what I planned to do last Wednesday and put into my diary or my project plan or whatever. Okay, life happens. Move it along.
And it's adaptability, isn't it? And flexibility and resilience.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's this trust that also that because we've been taught to be productive and to be organized and planned, and we all do that in different ways, and that's fine. And yet when we get fixated on that, we lose the belief and the trust and the faith that there is a natural flow of life.
Yeah.
And again, like the weather, we go with it rather than when you resist it. What is it they say? Resistance is futile.
Resistance is futile. Resistance is futile.
Exactly. And it gets really painful as well, doesn't it? And uncomfortable and gnarly.
Really sort of funny. I haven't got my proper board gear on. I need my board gear.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is. And it is so much easier if you can learn to work with the flow.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah, and
what
it's
I see in your pictures.
oh, lovely. I'm
I
so
just
pleased to
love
hear
it.
that.
Because
Well,
there's
and you see,
the hair I started off with. There's the hair, and the hair, I don't know if it was a male hair or a female hair, but hair is just being hair.
yes,
She's not being,
exactly.
as I might be, I might be Ellen doing podcast, or Ellen stroking the cat, or Ellen half cocked asleep, or
Yeah,
Ellen writing or something like that. I'm not
yeah,
Ellen doing something, or as I often am. Hair is just hair, being hair.
yeah, yes, being, and that's it, isn't it? If we could be more in our lives, and I think that's something that takes ongoing practice and compassion for ourselves, because we find it very difficult to be as humans. And I don't think that's a design fault. I think that's part of who we are and what we're here to be and create and expand into. But if we can remember and learn, and that's why I love the animals so much and the trees and the plants, they're in that moment and they are being.
Yeah.
And when you connect into that, it feels so good. It feels resistance free. And it's almost like I liken it to, I don't know if you've ever abseiled in your life.
I haven't, no. I've watched people and I can almost sort of shapeshift into it and go with the feeling, but I've never actually, you have.
Well, yeah, I've done it a number of times, and it's not something I would choose to do. It's always been for raising money for charity or whatever, or a challenge. And I'd get terrified. My brain would be saying, "You're going to die if you climb over this edge," and rightly so, it's worried. And I'm in a harness, obviously the safety harness, and I'd be terrified and almost like shaking until I lean into the harness, and then I go, "Oh, it's got me." And to me, this
Oh,
is what the
yeah.
animals and nature bring to me, is just lean into the support, this
Yes.
support all around you, which is, not just nature, but, the beyond, the higher powers, the ancestors, however you call that, God, whatever you call it. Lean into that and trust that there is a bigger plan that we don't understand and we're not meant to, and we are being held by that. And then we have choice about how we choose to go with that.
Yes.
And to me, that's the most reassuring thing I found so far in my life. That reassures me better than anything else.
I think that's a really lovely way of putting it. And I love the idea of, I was going to slightly rephrase what you said, that lean into being you, lean into yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
because
really feel
we
I'm
are.
hang on to, I'm going to get a post-it note and stick it up all over the house now. And lean into yourself. And when you feel worried or stressed, lean into yourself. You've got you.
Yeah, and because again, back to the holograph,
Yes.
we are in everything.
Yeah.
So however we perceive that, we are a part of hair. Hair is a part of us. We are a part of the tree. The tree is a part of us. And that's when, if we can give out love and compassion and care and protection to others,
Yeah.
we then are given that in return. And so I think that's why people say, I always feel much better when I've been out in nature, or I always feel much better when I've, been stroking a horse or stroking my cat or my dog,
Yeah.
and it's because I think we get that heart
It is the
connection.
heart connection. Yeah, it is. And it's something I find I try and get clients to come and help me do in my work, or help do, because when they get, everybody gets stressed, everybody gets stuck, everybody gets into a place where there's too much, it's overwhelmed. And nature, all of it, even if it's just go and sniff a rose, or I've got a whole bucket full of hyacinths blooming outside my front door at the moment, which is gorgeous.
Lovely.
That you come past and there's this fantastic scent. And just for a moment, whatever it was you were worrying about, that they hadn't got any cheese in the shop or whatever, it's suddenly it's gone.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what? You can eat something else instead of cheese.
That's it. Yeah.
And if only we could get it into, it's a thing. We sort of feel we need to sort ourselves out.
Yes, it's all on our shoulders. Yes, that's it.
And nature is always there saying, lean on me.
Exactly. And there's a divine timing to things as well. That probably sounds a bit hippie, but I don't know how else to describe it. But it's almost like, my experience of life is when I'm trying to push and make things happen, not only is it not very comfortable and I get stressed, but it also tends to get a bit sticky and delays happen and things might go wrong. If I'm too laid back and I don't do anything and I become, like a vegetable on the couch and do nothing, clearly there's another problem there, because nothing actually starts to take shape and nothing starts to form. So for me, and again, this is what I've loved from learning from the indigenous peoples, is the middle way. They have different names for it in different cultures, don't they? But like this middle way, where there is a tension between holding a vision of what we would like to allow and draw into our life, and flowing with that, even though the way that we get there is probably very different from what we might imagine. It's not a straight line, it's a meandering river going wherever. With various
in my own indigenous culture, because we have one here in Britain.
Yes, we do.
We call it the crooked path.
Oh yes, that's lovely. I've not heard of that, but I've got a lovely friend in America, and she's Native American, and they call it the red path,
Yeah, yeah,
which is beautiful as well. So, but yeah, it's sort of this in between where it's like a little bit if you have an elastic band over two of your
yeah,
fingers, and you just get to the point where there's a connection.
yeah.
That's the point that we're trying to get to, where we hold it lightly, we hold a vision of what we would like to feel and allow and bring in, and then we go fluidly with it.
Absolutely.
And again, the animals and nature as a whole is just, they're just the best teachers for me. I'm yet to find any better teachers than them in all their different shapes and sizes and guises.
I quite agree. And as I said, I was brought up in what we call the old ways.
Mm,
My family been what you might call witches for hundreds and hundreds of years. And
mm,
you just learn to keep your head down because it can get rather uncomfortable, or certainly has in the past.
mm.
So you don't, but you still carry it forward. And
Yeah,
because people don't know about it, is because we've managed to keep our heads down fairly well. Well, until
yeah,
about, actually, things changed quite a bit at the millennium. A lot more
yeah,
of us felt we could come out much more and talk.
yeah,
But
yeah,
again, it's the animals and the trees, they're much older than us.
yeah.
And you can talk to them, you can sit with them, and probably lots of the people who are watching us have actually gone and sat under a tree and leaned against it and put their hands on it and maybe even hugged it. And they may not want to talk about that because people go, ooh, tree hugger.
Mhm.
But they felt supported by that tree. Or else you sit by a stream and you know how it is, and you just hear the stream singing,
Mhm.
and it sort of washes a whole load of stuff away from you.
Exactly. Yeah,
And or birds
exactly.
singing, or you're watching. I mean, we've got quite a lot of we've got quite a big kindness of ravens down the valley, which is nice
Mm.
when they all get
Yeah,
going. Resident
yeah.
buzzards, we've got sparrowhawks and peregrines come over. And
Oh,
the
wonderful.
buzzards are amazing, as you know, because they really just float.
Mm. Mhm.
And there's just, they've got fingers, like fingers in the end of their wings. And they just
Yeah,
tickle the edge, and they're just hovering and floating and watching.
yeah.
And you can just watch that. And sometimes if they're having fun because they play,
Mm.
and they get an air current like a glider does, and they just go
Mm.
round and round, really enjoying. Whoa, whoa. And it must be
Mm.
like you're abseiling, the same sort of
You
feel.
would. Yeah, you would
Yeah,
though, wouldn't you? If you could fly, you'd be up
yeah.
there. I'd be up there all the time.
Oh, yeah, great. Just relax on my wings. This is fine.
And again, they're being held, aren't they? They're held, and yet they engage, because if they didn't know how to fly effectively, they'd fall out of the sky, which they do a
Yeah,
bit when they're youngsters. But they learn how to
yeah,
engage, don't they,
yeah,
with the wind, and how to navigate that
yeah,
with least effort and least resistance.
yeah.
And it,
And
it is
they,
beautiful.
it works so beautifully.
Yeah.
I was watching the third episode of David Attenborough's last night, which has
Yeah.
lots of eagles in it,
Yes, isn't it
particularly the
gorgeous?
after bit with they've got a whole after bit with the
Yeah.
seagulls. It's
Yeah.
totally, utterly amazing. You
Awesome.
watch them and you just go, oh my God.
Yeah.
And the thing with the hen harriers breaks my heart because I adore hen harriers. But
Yeah.
she says, are you up for it? Because I'm not quite sure that I want you for my mate unless you're up for it. And that happens a
Yeah.
lot, by the way, in nature. And he came over last night. And so he sort of chats her up and brings her the right food. But
Mm.
he passes it to her in the air. He drops it, and she turns upside down and grabs it with her feet and then
Yeah.
takes it. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, if I could do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Isn't it gorgeous? And again, for me, it's like this sacred contract that you see in nature everywhere when you learn to be still and watch and learn from them.
yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough to see eagles when they lock their claws, and they do the spin,
yeah,
and it's
tumbling.
like this, just incredible snake. It was a pair of snake eagles.
Wow.
And we were literally in a minibus being dropped off. We were on the way to being dropped off at the conservation reserve that we were going to, and I looked up, and then I heard somebody on the ground go, "Snake eagles!" And we looked up, and they were coming down, and they were locked, and it was this pure sacred reverence for each other, of a trust that's not a soft, fluffy trust.
No.
It's you have to be that in that moment. You have to be the right thing in order for me to allow you into my sacred space. And it's just mesmerizing. And you think, well, talk about lessons in boundaries and how to hold your power, and but it's not done. There's nothing nasty about it. It's purely an expectation of, I'll meet you here, but only if you meet me in the way that's acceptable.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed that. We're back to hares again, because the third episode has got beautiful stuff with hares.
Yes.
And
yeah.
we've all seen at least pictures of what they call hare boxing. And
Yes.
I think still a lot of people think that it's a couple of males fighting. It is not.
No, it's the ladies.
Well, it's the lady who I sometimes feel she's sort of saying, what part of no is it you do not understand?
Like, you've got to earn this. You've got to earn it.
And they really do. First of all, he comes along and sniffs and, sort of says, hey, how about it? And she goes, yeah. And she'll stand up and like this. And so he looks up and goes, help, and smacks back. And then they sort of do this for a little bit, and then she'll sort of say, catch me if you can then.
Yep.
And she runs, and he's got to. And others will come and join in then, and then they'll all be trying to get her, and she's sort of in the middle of it, and she's going, get off, get off, get off, get off, get off, and running again. And it's the girl, the female,
exactly,
when it happens, if it happens, and if it's with you.
Yes, exactly. And it's on her terms, but it's not from a place of domination.
No.
Which is where, again, I very interested in how humanity has veered away from what I'd call the balance of, and I'm sure you do too, sacred masculine, sacred feminine.
Yes.
And that we have both in all of us. So there is masculine and feminine in all beings.
Absolutely.
And it's an energy rather than a gender, which is how we would normally label it as humans. And that when us as humans moved away from that balance, which always, through all the things that I've learned and read, has always been that the sacred feminine is the guiding force, a benevolent guiding force, which to me, in terms of us as humans, is our heart, our intuition, our matriarchal, firm but fairness, which is exactly what you're describing with the animals. And then the sacred masculine imbalance is the protector of that, and the activator, and the one that brings the nourishment and allows this to flourish and new life to come forward. And if we put that into ourselves, for me, that's allowing my heart to wisely and knowingly feel the right way forward, and then putting my head into action with all the clever stuff that brains can do.
Exactly.
And to do that in unison, rather than it being a fight or a battle that's about domination, and one being the dominator and the other being the submissive, which is never how it actually is in
not in the natural world,
in anything natural. And it is, sadly, it's just when we divert from that we get ourselves again, as I always say, our knickers in a twist.
I do too. I agree. I was thinking while you were saying it, because I feel very strongly our young David got something wrong in the third episode, because I've got two friends who've got small herds of horses, and I know you are a horse person, and one of our
Yeah.
mutual friends is another very much horse person.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in both of my friends' cases, the herd, the leader of the herd, the boss of the herd, is the older mare.
Yes.
She
Yes.
leads it. And she has sorted out, and my Scottish friend, she's got two young geldings in the herd. One of them is a huge, great Suffolk punch, and the other is a gorgeous little grey Arab. And the boss of the herd is a older mare, bay Arab. She's about 13, 14 now.
Yeah.
And we thought when they first came together, this is years ago, we thought, oh, probably the Suffolk punch he'll be the omega of the herd, in a sense, he'll be the gelding who follows along, and he will take the young Arab as the protector. Oh no. No, I mean, Fiona was saying, you can almost see her sizing them up, saying, no, I think if I'm really in a fight, I'll go for the punch. He'll just squash him. And so her protector is this beautiful Suffolk punch. And the wicked uncle, the wicked wizard who is glorious tease and keeps everybody on their toes, is the young Arab gelding.
Yeah.
And then others fit in amongst that.
Yes.
And my other friend down the road, the same thing goes with there. The older mare rules the roost.
Yeah. And ancestrally again. Hopefully a good thing. I've not lost anything out of my brain. It's just my earphones.
It's all right. It's your babel fish, dear. Going back to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you put your babel fish in your ear.
I can't remember what I was going to say now. I think there's a personality. So I think, like us, we've all got our own unique personality.
Yeah.
And then we've also got this sense of the purpose that we're here for as well. And I think with horses, because I mean, I've seen it go different ways, and it all depends on the dynamic of the group, of the herd. And I think this goes across all of life. Some personalities the last thing on earth they would ever want to do is be the lead, whether they're a mare or a gelding or a stallion, and they're just like, no, leave me out of it. I'm just happy to follow along and do whatever you decide. And others are more like, well, no, I'd really feel more safe and secure if I'm the lead. But if you sit and you become present in the moment, you can quite quickly see the personalities coming out. And again, I love to talk about that with people, because we are often, even in the David Attenborough world of science, they're called it's, and I always think, no, it's a he or a she or a they, there's no need to it. And a lot of scientists will number the animals because it's this fear of becoming emotionally connected, which of course would be far more useful, I think, in many instances.
I totally agree. And I don't believe that they do cut off anyway. I think they just try and pretend they do.
I know. I think they play along because it's the accepted norm. Some of them will be more disconnected than others. But and there's this sense of just being able to acknowledge who they are as a species kind, and their huge ancestry. I mean, I don't know what the oldest animals that are still here physically on the earth, but I know the pandas, for example, have been here for like 10 million years at least. And it's honoring the fact that their ancestral wisdom and knowing has come right through to the modern day beings that are here. And honoring them like the elders that they are. And just knowing that we have so much to learn from them. And it's not about that who's better, or scientists can be a bit obsessed with who's more intelligent, and how do you measure intelligence? Well, that's a whole other conversation.
Well, yeah. that's a whole other podcast, Jules.
But I think and it is the joy of just accepting them for who they are, knowing, as you said so beautifully earlier, that they know exactly who they are
Yeah.
and they are themselves regardless.
Yes.
And if we can learn and remember how to do that a bit more in each day, and that's not about being naive and sharing with
No.
people that will then abuse that trust or manipulate us or whatever, but knowing when we can be more ourselves and connect with people that we feel are trustworthy as well, it then gives them permission to do the same, and that's a ripple effect, isn't it, that can, I think, can
So gorgeous.
only do good. Yeah, can only do good in the world. And
I'm just all for ripples.
yes.
Everything I do is I just hope this ripples out and connects. And it hasn't got to come out as a clone of me. It just makes the ripple into somebody else, and then they take it
Yeah.
further, and then they take it further.
Yeah, and they bring their own
Exactly.
pieces of the jigsaw that we haven't thought of. And
Yeah.
and this is, again, when I see, try not to very often, when I see politicians arguing with each other and they don't even listen to what
No.
the other person's saying, I just think, I remember the talking, heard of the talking
Oh
sticks
yes, yeah,
in
we use it. Yeah.
yeah, it's
I
such a
can't,
brilliant
I can't
thing,
reach
isn't it?
mine at the moment. Yeah.
And it's just that simple thing of, if we actually can just learn to listen to each other more carefully and with more respect and presence, that again is a transformative thing. And it's not that we have to agree with each other, because we don't, and we'll have different viewpoints. But if we, allow ourselves to listen and seek to understand, rather than to come back with something that will prove them wrong or show others that, I'm right and you should do what I'm saying, then again we can learn so much as well, because in that listening you can go, "Ooh, I never even thought of that," and well, now you mention it, ooh, that does sort of change the way I think about it, and
It's so
that's what we
exciting.
really. I
It is,
know,
I
it's
think it's so
beautiful.
exciting. And you suddenly go, oh, I don't have to be bored churning the same old round of what I think over and over and over. It can grow.
Exactly.
We're so encouraged. I don't know. I hope it's doing some good, but we're so encouraged. We need biodiversity. Well, we bloody do. But hell, we
Yeah,
need diversity in our heads and our thinking
exactly,
as well.
exactly. And I do think, if you look at human evolution, and I've had a tendency in my life, I like looking at the bigger picture. I'm very big picture, so it gives me a sense of greater perspective to think, well,
Yeah.
if I was a being looking down on Earth, and I was like, from a completely different planet, just imagine. And I was looking at what was going on with the human folk in particular. I'd be, wow, what is going on down there? But if you look at that, it allows you to see that in these times, what some of the big patterns are, and there's plenty of patterns to see, but some of the big patterns is this diversity, this neurodiversity, and all of the different diversities that are, I think they've probably always been there,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they're becoming visible and expressed. And to me, it's causing a lot of fighting and a lot of disagreeing and a lot of polarization. This is right, this is wrong. And yet, through that, as we go through time, I think it's quite exciting, because what I'm hoping is happening, and I'm sure it is that we are opening up our heart again,
Yes.
so that we can actually let it in. And although there'll be a lot of, fighting and all sorts of horrible stuff that we humans can get up to, sadly, I think ultimately, as we go through that, it will help us to move back more in alignment with the fact that we are all teeny little drops in an enormous ocean,
Yeah.
but individually we all have something beautiful to contribute into that. And that gives me hope as well, because I try and avoid the news as much as
Oh
possible,
no,
but
I
I do.
can't listen to the news. No.
I keep an overview of what's happening
Yeah.
just so that I'm not ignorant to what's going on. But it can be very overwhelming for so many, can't it?
Very, very painful. And then
Yeah,
you sort of see something like, we've lost 90% of our butterflies in the
yeah,
past 25, 30 years,
yeah,
which hardly gets mentioned.
yeah,
And then you see somebody arguing about, I don't know what some pop star has said, or,
yeah.
something like
Who's
that.
right in
And
the
you sort
battle?
of,
I know.
you know,
I know, and that can drag us into a feeling of negativity, which then drags us down as well. And I think that's why, again, it's back to balance, isn't it? It's being aware of what's happening, but then also saying, right, what can I do today
yeah,
that will send out some
that's so
effectively
important. Yeah, yeah,
balance, because it's not about good or bad, it's just about what is balance and how can we bring that into the world. And that's when it's a bit more empowering, isn't it, because we have
much
choices
more,
that we can make.
much more. And one of my witchy ancestors, witchy backgrounds, my uncle Percy, he was a gardener, very, very
Mm.
good one. And
Mm.
one of the things he would say about what we would call mindset now, thinking and all that kind of thing, was sort of like, well, don't you think about that there, Ellen? Stop feeding the weeds.
Yes, perfect.
While I'm thinking of, why are they thinking about what this pop star's saying, or, what this government bloke's saying, or something like that, when, what are we doing about the fact that we've only got 10% of the butterflies?
Yes,
And this is it. Right. Stop thinking about the bad things. That's
yes,
feeding the weeds. And
yes,
start,
I
now,
love
what
that.
can you do? Even if it's just like you can go out and plant some really good seeds for butterflies in your garden,
Yes,
do the thing you can do. And the things you
exactly.
can't do, leave them alone.
Yeah, don't focus on it and
Yeah.
tend to the flowers.
And don't feed the weeds. Not
Yeah.
that he was a big one for weeds, because of course they're not really, but you know what I mean.
No,
It takes,
yeah, we know what the
yeah,
metaphor is. It's
yeah,
like don't pour fuel onto the fire that you really don't want to be happening in that moment, and instead create something that is again balanced and helpful to
yeah.
balance in the
And
world. And
brings joy for me. If you can do
yeah,
something that brings joy, even if it's only to you, because
yeah,
that energy will come off you. You'll be much nicer the next time somebody says hi over the garden gate to you. Um,
exactly.
it that makes such a difference. If you can try and
Yeah,
not that you forget the bad stuff, because
yeah,
that's not good either.
yeah,
And it
exactly.
is this like balance of what you understand what's going on, but you do what you can to help the good stuff happen.
Exactly, exactly. And it goes all the way down to the small decisions that we make every day. I am we finally, I've been meaning to do it for a while. We finally switched our toilet paper the
Right.
other day,
Yes,
and it's
exactly.
called Who Gives a Crap?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the title makes me want to buy it anyway, apart from the good
Exactly,
stuff,
exactly.
Yeah.
And they have their whole sort of ethos is friendly and light and making you laugh and talking to you about how this simple decision, which doesn't cost us, we worked it out, doesn't cost us any more to buy this
Yeah.
stuff than it does to buy the stuff from the supermarket where we were buying it from. But it makes us feel better to know that we're doing another little step that makes we hope, we trust that what they're saying is true, that it makes the world a more sustainable place and it's less damaging, there's no plastic and all that sort of thing. But also that it made the courier lady that delivered it laugh, because it got toilet jokes on the box that it arrived in. And I was upstairs and David, my husband, answered the door and I could hear her chortling away, she was laughing, and I had to ring the bank up because I've tried to do a online authorization and it hadn't worked. So I rang my bank and he said, and do you know what the name of the company is? And I said, who gives a crap? Well, he just burst out laughing. And then, of course, we were laughing for 5 minutes. I was telling him all about this toilet paper. And again, you just think, it's the smallest things, but it just, brightened up his morning and made me laugh. And
it's like,
so it's that sort of empowerment.
Yeah. Get a smile. I mean, I like you, I live out in the country, and so quite a lot of stuff I do get deliveries because it is actually easier. And there are all sorts of other things like, it is actually giving the delivery man a job, and he's using this much petrol per day, and I haven't got to add to it with my car to get to the supermarket. And so there's a lot of stuff around there which does work. But he comes along and, like you, something happens and you have a laugh.
Exactly. Or you just say something nice, like, thank you so much for delivering this to me. It makes such a difference. And that's it. And it doesn't cost anything, does it? It takes a second. And it makes you feel, well, it makes me feel better anyway. I don't know if it makes
it does me too. Better. And it's like with the hair right from the beginning. It's this connection. You've actually made a connection. Tiny one. You may never see this delivery person again.
Exactly.
You made a tiny connection to another being, and they made it back to you.
Yes. And back to nature herself, I go out walking a lot. I don't walk very long distances very often, but I go out every day. I try to go out at dusk and dawn because it's one of my favourite times, because obviously the veils are thinning and there's all sorts of things happening. The nocturnal beings are coming out and the daytime ones are roosting. And when I, even if I'm here, like the other day, you mentioned a fox. I was looking out my window here. There's a couple of fields and some hedgerows and a little woodland, and a fox, beautiful fox, came trotting out, and I haven't seen a fox here for 6 years.
Wow.
Which doesn't mean to say they're not here, but I haven't seen one. But I know there's a lot less. Our neighbours who have been here for 20 years said they hardly see foxes, and they used to see them quite regularly because we're so rural, and I think there's just not a sustenance for them, so they have to go off to the cities and towns to unfortunately often sort of scavenge for their food, which I find so sad. But anyway, so he or she came trotting out, and I just, as usual, I can feel myself just sending all this love, which just comes out. It's not, I don't have to think about it, it just pours out. And this fox stops, and they do this, they stop, they look, they know that you're there sending them love.
And they felt that energy you sent.
Exactly.
And I sometimes feel, I get the same thing. I sometimes feel back from them. It's there's a live, what comes over to me very often is, there's a live human out there.
Exactly. Or, they're a bit different. And sometimes the birds will fly away because they're like, what was that? Sort of almost like, wow, I'm not used to those human people doing that.
No, that's often the feeling that I get too.
Yeah, and they really do connect. And I mean, I've got so many stories. I'm conscious of our time running out, but we maybe have to do this again. But I've got so many stories.
Have to do this again. Yeah.
Oh, miraculous things where animals have come, and they've not only made that connection, but they've behaved in extraordinary ways. And I'd love to share a lovely example of some ponies. But have I got a minute to tell you that story?
No, you're going to save that one, because I am now holding you to the fact that you come back, you see.
That's the deal. I'm very happy to do that. But it's fabulous that when we can suspend our disbelief in what is really going on across species, that for me is when your experience of life shifts radically, and in all sorts of ways that you couldn't even imagine.
And I think that I just totally agree with you. And I'm just thinking, what a fabulous note to finish on.
Yeah.
Let's all expand and connect.
Yeah.
See you all again, people. Bye for now.